Welcome back to part two of our mammoth coverage of the Toronto International Film Festival. And once again, I am joined by Tina Kakadelis. So, hi, welcome back, Tina. Thanks for
Hello.
sticking with me. I know
So happy to talk about movies.
I
This is
know.
delightful.
I don't know if you've heard the first half of our conversation, which if you haven't, why you're listening to part two already, go back and check it out. We have so much fun. We're talking about stuff like The Substance and Nora, all our disagreements with Emilia Perez and all that sort of stuff. So, but we've got a lot to get through, and yeah, I think we might as well just keep on. So let's talk about day seven, which was the 11th of September. And so this was a bit of a packed day for me. I started the day off watching Nicole Kidman getting rubbed to climax by Harris Dickinson. So not a bad way to start off the day. So I was at Baby Girl, which is the new film by Helena Rain. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. And this is an erotic thriller in every sense of the word. Nicole Kidman, she is a very high-powered CEO of this like Amazon like technology company, and she's got a relationship with her husband, who's Antonio Banderas, but yeah, he's just not really good at satisfying her in the bedroom. Like the film opens with her just like naked on top of him, and he climaxes, but she doesn't. She has to go into the other room to just like get off to some submissive porn, and it's just like, oh well, that's a bit of a clue to where the film goes next. So she ends up getting a new intern who's Harris Dickinson, and he's quite abrasive. He's quite curt in his comments. He's quite rude as well, but there's something attractive that Nicole Kidman finds in him, and they end up having a bit of an affair where she takes on more of a submissive role and he's more dominating, and it's just all about the power plays, and it's just basically this is 50 Shades if it was written by actual adults. So it's a fun ride, honestly. Like I had fun with this. It's kind of like real like erotic thriller of the 90s kind of vibes, and Nicole Kidman is just going for it, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. How about you?
I think I enjoyed it as far as like the ride because I do think Nicole Kidman's like peak career is when she gets to just play a campy, wild character. I think that's when I enjoy Nicole Kidman most, and this was that. As
Hmm.
far as like a commentary about like female sexuality and older women and desire in terms of that, it felt a little flat for me. Like it felt, I think calling it like an erotic thriller of the 80s and 90s, I think really makes sense for it because they were trying to add like some tension and with her character, and like if she would lose her whole company based off of the affair that she has with her intern. I didn't really feel like those were high, like the I didn't really feel like she was in any jeopardy of losing any of that. And as like a fun movie to watch, I really liked it. As far as like something beyond, it didn't really work for me.
No, that's fair. I mean, there are lots of other probably more provocative films about, female sexuality, especially when you're at a certain age. Like
Hmm.
I think of Good Luck to You, Leo Grand from a
Yeah.
couple of years ago. I mean, with Emma Thompson. I mean, I felt that one had a bit more to it in terms of just exploring that kind of like a reserved woman, middle-aged, and just kind of like being allowed to let loose with a younger man. And there's some stuff in that too that I think that this film does fairly well. But I think like you look at something like Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, and just kind of think like, oh wow, they actually kind of did things in a more for lack of a better phrase, mature way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're right. Baby Girl is definitely a film where you're just along for the ride, and it is a very good ride. Like Helena Rain is has done made some fun movies. She made Bodies, Bodies, Bodies a couple of years ago, and that's kind of like plays on the whole like murder mystery and millennial Gen Z like affluence in a very
Hmm.
interesting, fun ways. And then this one, yeah, you're right. It is definitely 80s, 90s erotic thriller, but it knows what it is, and it just kind of keeps at it, and yeah, it really is anchored by just Nicole Kidman, who is just really allowed to let loose. Like you said, like when she's just doing her thing, like when she's being being allowed to just kind of like explore her own acting style, like she can just be so much fun, and
Hmm.
I really appreciate what she was doing. And she did win the Best Actress award at Venice for this film,
Yeah.
which was quite interesting. I mean, it's definitely a strong turn by her. And there's a moment later on in the film where she just has like a stern delivery. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, that's the Nicole Kidman we all know and love.
Yeah.
But so it's interesting to see if she'll like go the distance. I feel like some people will be put off by it because it is a quite a risque sexual film, and people are for whatever reason put off by stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then I don't know what they'll think of this film. For me, like, and again, this kind of goes in line with what I thought on Honora, and I feel like just sexuality in general is such an important part of our humanity, and I feel like to see it portrayed in a very positive and not very shameful way is very healthy. And I feel like I know
Yeah.
there's a lot of discourse now surrounding like sex scenes in films and whether they're necessary or whatnot. And I don't really buy into that, but I feel like there's a limit. And I feel like if you do it well and if it's incorporated in the film well enough, then I think it's absolutely worth it pursuing. And I feel like films like Honora and especially Baby Girl, they are part of the narrative. And I
Hmm.
feel like they really handled it well. It is predictable. Like you kind of know certain things that are going to happen well before they do. I mean, you've seen this film kind of before. It just happens to be done very well. But yeah, I had fun with Baby Girl, and that's
Yeah.
I think that's all you can ask for, really.
Yeah, it was just interesting to see that and then Linda in like the within like a 2 days back-to-back span. Because Linda is about a woman who is like mid-20s who's hired as a cleaner for this very rich family. And all of the family kind of like immediately falls in love with her. Like the mom, the dad, the son, the daughter, all of them are just in love with Linda. Um, but I think it did a lot of what I wanted from Baby Girl in terms of like looking at power dynamics and looking at how, because I mean, I won't spoil Linda because I think it's a very interesting movie and I think it's smaller and Argentinian, so it's not going to get as much buzz as Baby Girl, but I think it's interesting to look at the way that the husband and the wife treat their relationship to Linda as like their employer because they are her employer and the way that they use their standing and the kind of economic relationship that they have with her to get her attention. And I think that that is, and then same with the kids, where you kind of see the son mirroring the dad's actions, and then you see the daughter doing her own thing. And I think is a much more interesting to me means of starting conversations about like power dynamics than Baby Girl.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't heard much about Linda. Like, I think I saw like the name passed around a few times. I never really knew much more about it, so that's interesting.
Hmm.
I'll have to keep an eye out for that one. Um, but yeah, I mean, it sounds like both of us like had some kind of titillation that day, and for me early on, and then it was followed immediately by a much more family-friendly film. So I went to see Piece by Piece, which is the new documentary from Morgan Neville, and it's about the life and career of Pharrell Williams, the big music artist, for songs like Happy, Get Lucky, and Drop It Like It's Hot, all these kind of like big chart toppers. But the hook is that it's all done through Lego animation. So it's animated in pretty much the same style as like the Lego movie and all of those ones, and it's a very conventional like music biopic. Like nothing in it is like nothing like you haven't seen in other things, like off the top of my head, Bohemian Rhapsody or Rocket
Mm-hmm.
Man or things like that. But I feel like very similar to Rocket Man, it's all about like the style that's been incorporated into it, like very conventional, like rise to the top, and
Mm-hmm.
but it does it in such a unique way. Like it really utilizes the Lego animation very well, and obviously, putting it over like the natural recordings of its subjects, like people interviewed aside Pharrell Williams, you got like Snoop Dogg is interviewed, and Jay-Z and Justin Timberlake, Gwen Stefani, all these big musical names, and it's very interesting how it kind of like blends fantasy with reality, obviously, because it's telling this very real story, but obviously they're having a lot of fun with some of the visuals, like when they're interviewing Snoop Dogg, like they're just spraying like a bunch of smoke. This is like PG smoke because we all know what kind of smoke it really is when it comes to
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg. So they play around with that sort of stuff, and they have fun with that, and it's a very heartfelt film. It wears its heart on its sleeve without with it becoming like a bit of a vanity project. Like it does go out of its way to show like the kind of ups and downs that Pharrell Williams went through, especially early on in his career. Like
Hmm.
there's a sequence where he's just kind of like consumed by all like the corporate big wigs and stuff, and it's kind of like a bit of like a possession film at times.
Mm.
And yeah, Morgan Neville, because he's done documentaries like didn't he do he did the Mr. Rogers one, and
Yes.
did he do, I think he did 20 Feet from Stardom as well. So
I don't know.
anyway, he's known for making very like life affirming like documentaries, and Piece
Hmm.
by Piece is no exception. I feel like it is, I'm sure it's definitely going to be inspiring to a lot of younger viewers who kind of like see Pharrell Williams' story and just kind of like think like, oh wow, well, it's this person who's come from this kind of background, and that has this kind of like a unique ability to create like lots of beats and music, and it's like, oh, I can maybe do that too. Maybe I could be the next Pharrell Williams, or be the first be the first me, or whatever. And I think it was a charming film. I did like it, and I wouldn't say it's like favorite among the rest, but I did like it. It's also
Hmm.
closing the London Film Festival
Mm.
in a few weeks for as of recording this. So I'm glad I got it out of the way before having to wait until like mid to late October to just to see it.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it, but I love Legos, and I think that the way that they, especially in like the Lego movie, the way that they kind of, I don't know how to say it, like the way that they make the real world into Legos is always so interesting to me.
Hmm.
And the kind of their workarounds for different setups, I think is very intriguing. And I love Legos, so.
Yeah, I mean, because they it has that kind of like Lego movie animation where it's like the slower frame rate to kind of give it the illusion of stop motion,
Hmm.
where when it's all just CGI, but it's very cleverly done, and it's definitely a visual treat as well. I mean, all the Lego movies are to some
Yeah.
extent, but there's something they really do play around with that. So yeah, piece by piece, it's a fun movie. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I did enjoy it. So that's all I have to say about that, as far as Gump would say.
I mean, I saw The Life of Chuck, and that is a movie that I can fully say that I loved.
You know what? Actually, do you mind if we save Life of Chuck for a
Oh
bit
yeah.
later? Because because I've got stuff to say about that, and that's actually a bit later. Not to put you off, it's just like there's stuff
No,
to
you're
say about
good.
Life
I
of
mean,
Chuck.
it did take home the big award, so
It
it does
did.
make sense to save it to the end.
Yeah, we will talk about that one later. But I know you saw a bunch of other stuff that day as well. Like which other one stuck out to you?
Seed of the Sacred Fig, it was something that came out of Cannes that was really interesting to me just because of the circumstances of the film itself. It's an Iranian film that had to get smuggled out of the country because it was directly going against the government and the women who were removing their headscarves. So that's kind of what the movie's about a man who's kind of built his career in Iranian politics following being very moral about his choices and not giving into to pressure to kind of follow what the government wants and instead making his own choices. But then he gets a promotion and is essentially like kind of forced into becoming the thing that he hated. And then while at home, his daughters are like late teens, early 20s, and they are thinking about joining the group of women who are removing their headscarves, and so it's kind of becomes this very tense family drama amongst them all, and it does a really good job of kind of taking this huge issue and showing a smaller scale version of it. And I'm so sad that the theater that I saw it in, the AC was cranked up, and that makes me so sleepy. So like I kept like fight I was really fighting nodding off, but it's a really powerful movie, and the story behind it is equally as compelling.
Yeah, I remember hearing about this when it debuted at Cannes. Like everyone was talking about, oh wow, this is the film that the Iranian authorities don't want us to see, and
Hmm.
obviously we saw it, and everyone turned out to love it. I remember it was like an early contender for Palme d'Or. I think it came away with a jury prize, I believe.
I think
But
so, yeah.
yeah, it came away with something big, but I remember everyone was talking about it for a while, and it sounds fascinating because I mean, Iranian cinema. You've seen a lot of stories about prominent filmmakers being arrested and imprisoned, you know, for basically making comments about against the Iranian government, and
Hmm.
it's oppressive if it ever was. But I really respect filmmakers who just kind of like have all this kind of like, oh, well, if you show this film, then you're going to be in deep shit. And then it's just like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to show the film anyway, even if I had to leave my country in order to do it. And
Yeah.
they did it. And, yeah, obviously it went down the tree. And I think I believe it's playing at London Film Festival. I would like to see it there because I do hear really good things about it. And I do want to kind of, get on board that train. So hopefully I'll get the chance to see it. But I'm glad that you enjoyed it and glad that it kind of lived up to that kind of hype.
Yeah, yeah. I just don't think that they should schedule a screening of that movie at 9 p.m. Think that that's asking a lot. That's when I saw it though, and I was like, oh, gosh, I'm gonna do it, but this is rough.
Yeah, because it's like, is it like three
It's
hours
two
or
and a
something?
half. I think two
Oh,
and a half, maybe closer to three. But yeah, it was long.
yeah. I mean, imagine watching The Brutalist at that point.
It's
Like
brutal, one might say.
Bruce, yeah, I see what you did there. So yeah, Cedar the Sacred Fig, I'm glad you enjoyed that. And then on the completely opposite end of the scale, I finished out my day by watching Saturday Night. This was a film that gotten a lot of buzz from its debut at Telluride just a couple of weeks earlier, and for a while, this is like one of the hottest tickets in town. Like I
Mhm.
remember, like I'm surprised I was even able to get a ticket for this one because I mean everyone was just talking about it. I mean, so this is the film by Jason Reitman. He directed it and he co-wrote it with Gil Kenan. And it's basically a real-time look at the build up towards the very first ever broadcast of Saturday Night Live. In this is like October 1975, and
Mhm.
young Lorne Michaels, who's Gabriel LaBelle from The Fablemans, and it's just basically going everything that can go wrong does go wrong. You have like actors like going at each other's throats, like the set designers are like rushing to complete like bricklaying work on time, and like there's all the pressure from like NBC executives, including like Willem Dafoe, who's just always terrifying. And then you have like people like Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd just kind of like just doing whatever the hell they want backstage, was like doing drugs or just like just whatever, just chatting up people. It's just absolute chaos.
Mhm.
And honestly, I loved it. I thought this was a really fun ride. I mean, I really enjoy Saturday Night Live anyway. I think it obviously is a very iconic comedy show, and seeing all the stuff that goes into just putting out this one very first episode is just it's so hilarious to me because it's just like it's a film that is just filled with so much like going on in the background and the foreground all at once.
Mhm.
Like you almost have to see it more than once, just kind of even get a hint of what's going on. It's just like it's so well choreographed. It reminds me a lot of like Birdman, like how that
Mhm.
kind of like chaotic build up. Obviously, that film was still meant to look like it's done in one shot, and Saturday Night it's obviously much more broken up, but it flows very well. Like it is does take place in real time, literally from like 10 p.m. up to the 11:30 broadcast, and
Mhm.
it's just a thrilling ride. It's extremely funny. Like they've got some pitch perfect like performances. Like the guy who plays Chevy Chase just gets it down to a T, and you got supporting turns by like Rachel Sennett from Shiva
Yeah.
Baby and Bottoms, and you also got like J.K. Simmons showing up as Milton Berle, and Nicholas Braun is in two roles. He's Andy Kaufman and he's Jim Henson. So
Oh.
and yeah, so I mean, he's obviously in the beard as Jim Henson, but he's very out there as Andy Kaufman, as you'd expect. And it's just, it's such a great ensemble cast. It's very, very well written. Like this is probably the funniest film that Jason Reitman's ever made. And I don't know, I just had a blast with it. The one thing I will say about it is this
Mm.
is a film that contains a very ongoing musical jazz score by John Batiste, who's also in the film.
Mm.
And it's a great score, but yeah, it's the kind of score that kind of plays non-stop and it kind of goes over a lot of the dialogue. So you are kind of
Oh.
struggling to hear parts of it. Like it's almost to a point where I would recommend watching the movie with subtitles because there is a lot going on all at once, and it can be very difficult to hear all of it.
Yeah.
So that would be my one gripe with the film, which otherwise I thought was excellent.
Yeah, I didn't catch it because I figured that that's a movie that I know that my dad wants to see, and
Hmm.
I was like, I guess I should be a good daughter and wait for him. But Rachel Sennett is what made me really excited. I think she's so quick and so funny. And then also isn't Cooper Hoffman in it too?
Cooper Hoffman, yeah, like I mean,
Yeah.
as a Licorice Pizza diehard, like I'm just glad to see him get more work. And
Yeah, I like Cooper a lot.
yeah, Cooper Hoffman, he's great, and it's just a blast. Like if you've always loved SNL and just want that kind of like chaotic energy going on, and it's just it really is a blast. It really is kind of like a love letter to the chaos that would go on for not just this Saturday night, but for all the Saturday nights,
Yeah.
like 50 years on. And yeah, as the actual show reaches its 50th year, I think it's definitely worthwhile going to watch it just to see how all this chaos began.
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by it, and I love like a single setting powder keg essentially.
Oh yeah, in that case, yeah, they'll be right up your alley.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I believe that's all we have for day 7, unless there was anything else you wanted to talk about.
So, I mean, I'll shout out Young Werther because it's another smaller movie that I don't think is getting as much notice. It's adapted from like a 1700s novel called The Sorrows of Young Werther.
Hmm.
So it has this really charming, quirky sensibility, but it's like a modern day rom-com with Alison Pill, who I think more every movie should have Alison Pill. I think she's so great. But it's about a guy who essentially kind of rearranges his whole life for a woman who is getting married. And it kind of like turns rom-com tropes a bit on its head of like rom-coms teach people that if you keep trying hard enough and you love them the most, then things will work out for you. And Young Werther kind of shows that that's just not realistic or accurate or fair to the person who is in the relationship that this other person is trying to destroy, essentially. So I thought it was good. It was a really fun debut from the director.
So this is not the biopic of the guy who invented Werther's originals, so I'm very
Sadly,
disappointed.
no.
Ah,
Sadly, no.
it's just that young
This is
Werther. It's just like, oh wow, I can't wait to take my grandparents to see this.
No, this is some old German sad boy.
Oh, okay, so young Werther, excellent. So day 8, again, so I don't have much to say about this day. I just decided to take the day off and just catch up on some writing, which I managed to do, reviews for all the films I saw the previous days. But I think you saw a lot of films that day. So any that you want to give a shout out to?
I mean, I have to give a shout out to my Bruce Springsteen documentary. I didn't realize it, but I am wearing my Springsteen shirt from when I saw him last month.
Nice.
Um, it's like it's a documentary that's just about his like most recent tour, but it's also as kind of a lot of his work is for people who aren't familiar, it is kind of about his own mortality. He's been writing a lot more about that recently, and I think it's a very sentimental look on his life because it's his first tour in 7 years with his bandmates who many of have been around for over 50 years. So it's like capturing who he is now, who he is then, and then also showing the tour itself. So I can't be unbiased in it, but I really did enjoy that one.
I mean, that's fair. I'm personally, I'm not as big on Bruce Springsteen. I know a lot of other people are, but because I know he was actually at the festival for one of the screenings, wasn't he? So I imagine that
Not
drew
for
quite a
mine,
crowd.
but
Ah, but I mean, I enjoy his music. It's just not really something like I'm like, yeah, Bruce. But no, I appreciate that. I mean, because I mean, there were a bunch of music documentaries there. I think like the Tragically Hip had a
yeah.
documentary there, and I think that won the Audience Award for Best Documentary. So
Hmm.
obviously, there's still an appetite for it. But yeah, I didn't see the Bruce Springsteen one, so I'm curious to see how that one was. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it, but obviously, I mean,
I'm biased.
you're much more in tune with the boss than I am. So,
Yeah.
but hey,
And
I
then
know enough about him to know that he's called the boss, so that's
there
something
you
at least.
go. He is the boss. I think it's for me, I think it was just nice that it showed like the kind of bombastic, huge style that he's known for, but then also like his he gets kind of a weird rap, I think, with like people who are younger. Like I know a lot of like I'm 30 and I know that a lot of other people like when I talk about music, they think immediately that Bruce Springsteen is a very Republican figure. I don't know why. They think that he is like very much like fitting in like I guess because they play Born in the USA at like Republican rallies sometimes, even though he keeps sending cease and desist about it. But I think it's like a very like odd figure. Like I think it's something that not a lot of people really realize, like how what he has done and like the political work that he's done throughout the years. And this documentary doesn't really go into it, but it is like a nice, I think, kind of celebration of his career and the career that he's gonna keep doing because it does not seem like he's gonna slow down.
That's always what you want from your from artists you admire. You don't want them to slow down necessarily, so it doesn't
Hmm.
sound like he's doing that either.
Nope.
So that's cool. And anything else you want to give a shout out to?
Think that's it. I think that's it from that day. It was kind of a slow day for me.
Sure. So moving on to the day nine, the 13th, Friday the 13th. No Jason Voorhees around, unfortunately, but I did see The Order, which is the new film by Justin Kurzel, and this is a film that's set in the 80s, and it stars Jude Law as an FBI agent who has been tasked with tracking down a group of dissident white supremacists who are just kind of strayed from their flock and have decided to do much more extremist stuff, like they're robbing banks and they're just kind of doing all sorts of things, and like they're murdering a bunch of people, and they're just being racist as hell. And it's down to Jude Law and his sidekick Ty Sheridan to bring them down. And so yeah, this is like a police procedural version of
Hmm.
Black Klansman in a sense, because I mean obviously it's not the same plot, but it's like similar. Like obviously you got like white supremacy theme, and obviously like the villains are all of these big like psychotic racists, and it's much more. The film is most interesting when it's just focused on them, because like they're led by Nicholas Hoult, who is this
Hmm.
very sociopathic kind of chilling figure. He's got. I wouldn't say he's charismatic because he's just quite stiff and quite steely eyed, but he's got the ideas that are enough to draw people away from this much more civilized, I guess, group of white supremacists and onto his cause. And it's just like kind of brings about the idea that, it's not so much the messenger that brings people in, it's the message. And that's enough to like sway people into doing all sorts of heinous things. And, unfortunately, it is such a relevant topic in this day and age, when nationalism and prejudice are just like at highest levels that they've been in years, if not more so. And I think there's a lot going on there, and I think like the film kind of falters a little bit whenever it does focus more on like the Jude Law character, because
Mm.
Jude Law is very good in the film, but that it's more like a typical like procedural kind of thing. And like he's like the gruff kind of no nonsense cop figure, and he's also got a sidekick who, as soon as you meet, he's got a loving fan. He's just like, yeah, okay. That's
Yeah.
it's that kind of film, and it's still good. It's still shot very well, and there's a lot of really suspenseful action in there, but I didn't feel it was like a great film. It's an entertaining film. Like it's an interesting kind of study of what American white supremacy was in that time and how it kind of sowed the seeds, I guess, for how it is today. But other than that, I thought it was fine. It was nothing like I necessarily write home about.
That was one that I was curious about seeing, and then it just couldn't work its way into my schedule. But yeah, I would still be curious to see it. It sounds kind of like those like 90s movies that you would like watch when you're home sick from school.
Yeah,
And it's like, yeah,
it's very Heat, like
yeah.
Heat, but with more hate speech.
Hmm. Well, there you
No,
go.
no, it's not Heat, it's hate. Ah,
Yeah.
I don't know. So sorry, I don't know.
No, that's good.
Yeah,
That's good. It's what is that word? I'm blanking on. Where
I
you
don't
can
know.
spell it. I don't know. Never
Uh,
mind.
oh yeah, shit. I guess it is. Yeah, isn't it? The same
Yeah.
letters. I just
Yeah, it's the
realized
same
that.
letters, whatever. I forget what you call that.
Uh,
But yeah.
Dyslexia. I don't know. Apologies to any dyslexics out there. I apologize. But you know what I mean. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, that kind of pun. Anyway, so that's the order. Did you see anything interesting that day?
My big one was queer, the Luca Guadagnino, I
Uh,
think is how you pronounce it. I've been
okay.
pronouncing it wrong for a very long time, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to get better. The new Luca movie with Daniel Craig about Burroughs, the writer in Mexico. I'm not a huge Luca fan, so I kind of went for one of my friends who really loves Luca and was like, "You have to go and tell me everything." So I went mostly for him. But I will say I think this is my favorite of his. I think it gets a little funky toward the end because it goes a little supernatural is not the word, like fantastical, and the images that he starts to use only really make sense if you're very familiar with the real story and like his actual life, Daniel Craig's character Burroughs' life. So it kind of lost me a little bit there, but I really did enjoy the performances, and yeah, I think it was my favorite because it worked its way through the story in the most interesting way to me, but it was still missing just like a little bit in terms of developing Daniel Craig's love interest,
Mm.
for me
Is
personally.
Drew Starkey, right?
Yes, who I didn't realize was from one of those Netflix teen TV shows. He was very good.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've heard mixed things about Queer, honestly, because I mean I like Luca Guadagnino's stuff, and I think he's done some quite exemplary work. But Queer is one that I feel is being a lot more divisive because of, like you said, like this, it gets into some weird territory, and I feel like because it's the same author who did Naked Lunch, and if you've
Yeah.
seen that film and you know that film, then I don't know what to tell you if you go in expecting something a bit more straight-laced. So I'll see it because obviously Luca, but obviously Daniel Craig, I hear, gives a very good performance, and I mean, I like Daniel Craig anyway. So I don't know much about Drew Starkey. I don't know the sort of stuff that he's been in, but I hear he's one to look out for. And I didn't see it at TIFF, but I am seeing it at the London Film
Hmm.
Festival in a few weeks as I'm recording this. So I'll be able to check it out then and see what I make of it. Hopefully it's a good one. Hopefully I'm on the positive side rather than negative.
You always hope. Yeah.
Any others for day nine that you want to spotlight
I
or
don't think so. I think that was like the big one that I needed to make sure that I saw.
Also, can I make a brief confession? I'm a bit embarrassed about this, but when I saw like it's Edgar Burroughs, I think that's the author's name. I read that. It's just like, wait, isn't that the same person who wrote Tarzan? And just like, no, that's a different Burroughs, isn't it? Like, isn't it the same? Isn't it the same name, Edgar Rice Burroughs or something like that? Or am I thinking of
I'll
someone?
be honest, I have no idea.
I mean, going from
Um,
Tarzan the Ape Man to like full on gay Odyssey in Europe, it's just like, wow, what a swing that
what
was.
a what a duality. William Burroughs is the guy who wrote Queer.
William Burroughs, and I think it's Edgar Rice Burroughs who did Tarzan, right?
Let me see.
Yeah, well, she's checking on that. But yeah,
Tarzan.
so that's my confession. So obviously, I'm not queued up on literature as much as I'd like to be. You know, and I feel bad. I have a college degree. I have a master's for fuck's sake. I should know this stuff. I only know
You are
Tarzan.
right. It's Edgar Rice Burroughs for
See,
Tarzan.
see, that's the thing. I always look at the surnames. It's just like Burroughs. Wait, what? This
Yes.
one of these things is not like the other. You know, it's just I don't know. I don't know. So that's my dumb confession that I unfortunately had to make. So yeah, don't hate me for that, but fans. So moving on to day 10 now, and again, I don't have much to say about this one. I didn't see any films this day. I just wanted to get on with some writing. But you saw a couple of films, it looks like. So do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, I saw Andrea Arnold's Bird, which I really enjoyed. Uh, American Honey is one of my favorite movies of the past, like, I guess, decade now. It's been a while since it came out.
Hmm.
The Bird had it was about like a 12-year-old girl who's dealing with her relationship with her father, who's Barry Keoghan, and like kind of the tense nature that existed between the two of them. It's Andrea Arnold, everything that you love about Andrea Arnold, like the natural realism, but now she's starting to experiment a little bit with fantastical otherworldly aspects. So I thought that was a very interesting blend to kind of see her leave like Fish Tank and American Honey behind, not fully behind, but a little bit behind as she kind of explored this new world. So I really liked Bird. I think that was probably one of my favorites of the festival.
Nice. I mean, yeah, I like Andrea Arnold too. Like, I thought Fish Tank was one of my favorite films
Mhm.
of that year, and obviously, the stuff that she's done in between, like Wuthering Heights and American Honey, and oh, she did that documentary as well, Cow, I
How,
believe.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see Cow, but I heard that's pretty good as well. But yeah, she's a fascinating filmmaker, and like Sean Baker, she's very humanist as
Hmm.
well. Like she
Yes.
really knows how to get to the core of her main characters and just getting real stuff out of them. A very documentarian type of filmmaker, and yeah, I've heard really good things about Bird. Again, I didn't see this at TIFF. I'm hoping to catch this at London Film Festival, but. I would like to you know see like Andrea Arnold get that one film again like Sean Baker did with Anora that just kind of everyone can really enjoy, and obviously this being you know, a big film for Barry Keoghan, who's having moment and a half right now, like I think this could draw some people in, but I know that Andrea Arnold's style can be a bit off-putting to some, so I mean, from what I hear, this is very much more her. This is very much her in a nutshell. So, I mean, I like this style, but I can't speak for everyone else though. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes over with general audiences. I think it's coming to cinemas via Mubi in November, I believe. So I don't know if it's the same in the US or other territories, but yeah, I'll try and catch that in London Film Festival and see if that goes anywhere.
Yeah, and then the other one that I saw was Jane Austen Wrecked My Life, which was I wanted to have like a little fun, uh not a downer movie.
Well,
Uh
first of all, great title.
yeah, it's a fun title. It's about a woman who is like perpetually single, works at a bookstore, loves Jane Austen. Her colleague gets her like sends her, and she's a writer, and her colleague sends her writing away, and she gets accepted to a Jane Austen residency program. and then she's kind of torn, and then she meets this guy who's basically like a Mr. Darcy type. And so there's like that relationship dynamic. But what I really like that it felt like a Jane Austen adaptation without being like directly lifted from any of her novels. It had like the same feeling of the social status, but then also the sort of love, hate to love relationship, and then yeah, just the way that it developed and the way that like the main character, she kind of feels like a Jane Austen heroine without being like Elizabeth Bennet. So I really enjoyed that, and I thought that was like a nice little tension break for a lot of the heavy stuff that I had been watching.
Yeah, no, it sounds like fairly pleasant. I mean, most of Jane Austen's work is fairly pleasant in and of
Hmm.
itself, but so it's nice to hear that this one kind of captures that feel of something like Pride and Prejudice or Emma, things like that, all those classic things. So, is it when you say like residency program, is that like somewhere in America or is that actual in like Bath where she was mainly based in the UK?
It's supposed to be in the UK because the people who run it are descendants of Jane Austen.
Oh, I
And
see.
the
Yeah.
whole like the Mr. Darcy character is her great great grandson or something, but he
Oh.
actually doesn't like Jane Austen. So
Oh,
that of
okay.
course is like the cute point of contention for the two of them when they first meet and like have their first little bickering. And I think the use of language is really interesting because she's from France and he's in the UK, and but he speaks French, you find out, because she starts bad mouthing him in French, of course.
Mhm.
But the way that they jump between English, which is what primarily the people at the residency are speaking, and French, I thought was a very subtle way of like showing the connection developing between the two of them. Because like practical things they would speak about in English, but then when they were talking about like their pasts and like things that were important to them, they would switch to French. And it was just very seamlessly done throughout.
Oh, very cool. Well, hopefully that gets picked up for distribution somewhere. I think I'm not sure if it's been picked up by anyone in the US, but I imagine with its huge name in
Yeah.
here in the UK, I'm sure it'll be picked up by someone at some point because it sounds quite charming.
It's very charming, yeah.
Oh, well, I'll keep a lookout for that. So that's Jane Austen Wrecked My Life. Again, great title. And now, finally, we come to the final day, day 11, which is the 15th of September. So this was quite a packed day for me. I don't know about you, but I got up fairly early because I happened to be invited to the TIFF awards ceremony. It's just like a little, nothing fancy, nothing like the Oscars or anything. It's just like a little room in the back of the TIFF light box in the gallery section. It's just like a little event area. They had a bunch of chairs and had some like hors d'oeuvres and stuff like that. So just sat down and watched a bunch of people like get some awards, like best Canadian short and all the documentary. And then the one that everyone is there to see is the People's Choice Award. Now, this award is quite influential because a lot of the times over the years, it's become a bit of a good precursor as to what could wind up in the Best Picture race and sometimes
Mhm.
even become the winner. So a lot of people didn't know what would be named here because it's a thing that's voted by the actual audience. And so there's a lot of names up in the air. So it could have been Honora, it could have been Saturday Night, or We Live in Time even had a good shot, or Wild Robot, things like that. But what ended up happening actually kind of dictated the rest of my day. So here is the footage of Cameron Bailey, who is the head of TIFF, revealing the runners-up and the eventual winner of the People's Choice Award.
And now for the People's Choice Award presented by Rogers. The second runner-up is Honora, directed by Sean. The first runner-up is Emilia Perez. And the overall 2024 People's Choice Award presented by Rogers goes to The Life of Chuck, directed by Mike Flanagan. Mike. I think we woke Mike up, and but he did send a response. He wrote us this note. I'll read it to you now. I'm absolutely overwhelmed. We're so grateful that The Life of Chuck connected with audiences in such a powerful way, but never expected this. This is a movie about moments and about joy, and receiving this news is a moment I will certainly never forget. Thank you so, so much to TIFF, to all the people who brought this movie to life, and most importantly, to the audiences who've opened their hearts to Chuck. My heart is dancing. That's from Mike Flanagan. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the festival.
So, as you can see, the winner ended up being The Life of Chuck, which is Mike Flanagan's film. It made a huge wave when it debuted earlier on in the festival. Yeah, there was a massive rush to see this film because they added a bunch of screenings for the People's Choice winner, and yeah, everyone suddenly it became like the hottest ticket in town because like, wow, it won this big award that has determined like awards contenders. Like last year it was like American Fiction, and then the year before
Mhm.
that the Fablemans, and so on and so forth. And so everyone was just like, oh wow, this is interesting because Life of Chuck, it has not, as of recording this, it has not been picked up by a distributor. So will it even make it into this year's Oscar race? So there was a massive rush to see it. So this is the rush line to try and see the newly announced People's Choice Award, which is The Life of Chuck, which just goes to show how massively influential this award is, that people are already queuing up like less than an hour after it's been announced for like extra showings that they've announced for it. So hopefully I get a ticket. I ended up getting a ticket, but unfortunately it wasn't until like 9:45 in the evening.
Oh no.
Yeah, so there was a bit of waiting around. I had my screening for The Wild Robot earlier that day anyways, but so I was just kind of wandering around a little bit, just kind of like looking for stuff to do. I ended up going up the CN Tower, which for those who don't know is one of the biggest buildings in the world. It's by far the biggest building in Toronto, possibly
Mm.
even Canada as a whole. And it's just that this big spire with a spike at the top, and you just go up it and you see the entire city from a very good height. And you know what? As someone with a fear of heights, I'm surprised that I'm even conscious just talking about it because this was quite you should have seen me. I was just like trying to go up to the edge to try and get like selfies in front of like the city of skyscraper and
Yeah.
stuff. I had to like keep looking the other direction at someone else just to kind of like fixate onto so that I wouldn't look down and just like
Yeah.
just like
Did you walk over aren't there, I haven't been up in a really long time, but aren't there like on the floor like glass that you can see all the way down? Did you
uh,
walk over that or no?
Okay, so for those who don't know, there is what she just said. There is a little glass floor which you can do, and there's also like a little thing further around that area where you can also like actually go out on like a little handle and actually lean out the side. And in both instances, saw that. It's just like fuck that. And it's just like so I stayed firmly inside and decided not to risk my life. And I'm kind of glad I did because that shit looks horrifying. Yeah, so again, fear of heights. Like I'm someone who gets a panic attack when I'm up in the nosebleeds at the theater, just
Mm.
like so I imagine being like being up several hundred feet in the air, just like looking down and just like, nope, not for
Yeah.
me. So, but I went up, I did it. I managed to get some good pictures. I'll overlay them just here so people watching this on YouTube can kind of have a look at it. But for those listening, you can see the pictures on the YouTube version. But so yeah, I just passed some time with that, and finally, I was able to finally see the People's Choice, which was The Life of Chuck. So yeah, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier. You saw it before I did, but so yeah, so this is a film that is, like you said, written and directed by Mike Flanagan, who's no stranger to Stephen King. He previously made Gerald's Game and Doctor Sleep. And this is by far the least scary of those three adaptations he's done.
Or
It's
the most scary, depending on how existential you are.
This is true. This is very true because this is Stephen King adaptation, and it's told in reverse order. So there's three chapters. Starts with chapter three, and basically, in chapter three, everything's going to shit. Like the
Mm.
apocalypse is pretty much in full swing. Internet's down, and there's massive sinkholes, and there's everything is just kind of going to shit. And the one constant is an advert, like a billboard, celebrating the life of a man named Charles Krantz, who's Tom Hiddleston, and it's just a simple ad. It's just thank you, Chuck, for 39 glorious years or whatever. And it's just him, just sitting at the desk with his mug and nothing else, nothing else. No one knows who this Chuck guy is, what he's done, and all that stuff. And to people like Chiwetel Ejiofor, they kind of pass the ad as like, who is this guy? He's like just a random guy, and then his image starts coming into like subliminal TV messages, and then it's suddenly just like broadcast in everyone's windows, and just like, what is going on here? Is this some kind of like cult worship thing going on? Is this some kind of like, is he setting up as the new messiah in this post-apocalyptic world? But then, as it goes along, as you see the chapters in reverse order, you kind of think like, oh, okay, so this is what it is. Okay, this is what it's all about. And what it is, without getting into too much spoilers, it's a very intimate character study of this guy, Chuck, Tom Hiddleston, as an adult, but he's also played as a kid by various other actors, including Jacob Tremblay. And it's just a snapshot of his very ordinary, but also in a lot of ways very extraordinary life. It's a film that really takes pleasance in the mundane of it all, because I mean, it's not a particularly interesting life, but there is stuff going on, but it's nothing like groundbreaking or anything. It's
Mhm.
just a guy living his life, and there's some really charming stuff to it. It juggles a lot of tones, like it's a coming of age teen movie, then it's a like I said, post-apocalyptic thriller, and then at one point it just becomes a dance number, which is like the centerpiece of the whole film, and it's a great sequence. It's like something out of a Gene Kelly film,
Mhm.
and it just kind of it stops the movie just for 5 minutes, just for pure joy, and it's wondrous to behold. And I think that there's a lot that Flanagan does here that really you really feel this guy's journey, even though nothing much is happening. You really feel emotionally connected to him. You feel emotionally connected to other characters that are close to him, including Mark Hamill, who has a great supporting role, a couple of
Mhm.
great monologues as well. And I think it's a really lovely and heartwarming film. I wouldn't say it's feel good. It's more like feel slightly less bad about things good.
Yeah.
But it's got its heart in all the right places, and it's a very different to what most people are probably expecting from Stephen King. Obviously the horror stuff, The Shining, Carry On, all that
Yeah.
stuff. But this is not that. It's much closer to something like Stand By Me or even Shawshank Redemption. So it'd be interesting to see if this does get picked up for distribution in the coming weeks or months and does
Yeah.
come into the awards season, because it'd be interesting to see how far this one goes, because obviously films like Shawshank and Green Mile, Stand By Me, non-horror Stephen King films, they got in the conversation, even got nominated for Best Picture. But it'd be interesting to see if this one works. But even if it doesn't, I thought this was a very charming and pleasant film. It was honestly a pretty good one to end my TIFF experience on.
Yeah, that's a nice ending. I saw it probably midway through, and I've described it as Stephen King by way of Mike Mills, who I love
Oh,
Mike Mills.
yeah.
Because and I love Mike Flanagan. I've been watching his stuff for a really long time. I think the only things of his that I haven't seen are like a couple movies from 2000 that I just can't find on the internet. But I just think what he is able to balance in terms of real human emotions and also kind of the otherworldliness and just the strangeness that life is, I think nobody balances it like him. Like I think Mike Flanagan is somebody who understands Stephen King as much as Stephen King understands himself. And I think the sadness and the melancholy and the joy and the way that he blends them all together, I think Life of Chuck is just like his best example of doing that. And I love when he lets characters have monologues. Like I think it's great. And I was honestly a little surprised that it got People's Choice, not because like I couldn't vote for it because I didn't see it in a screening that I could vote for it in,
Mm.
but it just didn't feel like anybody was really talking about it. And I'm kind of curious if nobody was really talking about it because it was such an emotional movie, and it just feels so personal. And even if you don't live the life that looks like Chuck's, it's just the simplicity of life, and we each have our own simplicity and our own things and like our own very deep personal memories. And to me, Life of Chuck just like hits you there and it makes you feel that. And I think maybe that's why nobody was like talking about how much they liked it, because it just feels like this deeply personal movie for everyone who watches it. And I think it's really special that it won without being like, no, everyone was talking about The Substance and The Brutalist and Saturday Night and like trying to get into those things. But I didn't really hear a lot of talk about Life of Chuck, which I don't know. And when I think about it that way, it's a very interesting win for People's Choice Award.
Yeah, because I mean, I think even Stephen King mentioned that it was like a dark horse win. Because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, again, like we were throwing names out earlier, like Saturday Night and Wild Robot, even Anora, which ended up getting like second runner up. Those are more like crowd pleasing films than something like Life of Chuck arguably is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's really like life affirming stuff in the movie, but like in terms of like full on crowd pleaser, I think you'd be better off looking to something like Wild Robot or Saturday Night
Right. And it's got
because
a less stacked cast. Like it's a stacked cast in terms of like if you follow Mike Flanagan's career, it's like
mm,
all of his favorites coming back, and that's always exciting to see. But I mean, you have Mark Hamill, but I don't think Mark Hamill is as glitzy of a star as some of the other ones. Not as glitzy as like Demi Moore or something like that.
hmm.
So, and then Tom Hiddleston, I think, is well known, but not in like the peak of he was for a couple years ago. So it is an interesting win, but I'm very happy that it won.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's a very lovable film. Like, again, I'd be very interested to see who picks it up because, like, I
Hmm.
think, like, I know he's like not on great terms with Netflix at the moment because I think they kind of screwed him over with his TV shows. But I've heard because I know he signed another deal with Amazon, so
Hmm.
it might be Prime Video pickup or even, God forbid, Apple. Because I mean, I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, Apple could pick it up" because it feels like that kind of movie, which kind of hoping it doesn't because that means it'll get like no promotion whatsoever before it just
Yeah.
hits Apple TV Plus. But
Yeah.
I don't know. So I mean, but either way, I think it was a very pleasant way to end what was honestly a pretty hectic but ultimately worthwhile festival. Like I going through all these films again just with you today and in the previous episode, like it really does remind me how much fun it is just
Yeah.
watching all these films and just talking about all of them and just kind of reminiscing about what worked about some of them, what didn't. And I just had a real blast. It really is, for me, it really is a once in a lifetime thing. And I think because of the cost it took to actually
Mm.
travel out here and stay here, it might actually literally be once in a lifetime. But I'm happy that I did it at least once, and I got to meet so many interesting people, like yourself. So. It's no, I really I'm glad I made this trek out. So and hopefully you did as well.
Yeah, and it's less of a cost barrier for me because I can take a bus and that's only like $30. So I don't have to worry about that. The hotels are unavoidable,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. Hotels are like just another level. Like what are you
Yeah.
doing? I ended up getting like a pretty good Airbnb somewhere just outside the downtown area, but it's still it's
It's
still
still
like
pricey.
it's still very it's like costly as hell. So
Hmm.
I mean, who knows? Maybe if my financial circumstances work out by this time next year, maybe I will go out again. But you know, I would like to do a lot more international festivals in the coming years. I'd love to do Venice one year,
Yeah,
like obviously Cannes, obviously Berlin. Yeah, there's so many festivals around. It's not just Toronto or London. It's just there's so many that I'd really love to experience at least once in my lifetime. But you know, I'm glad I can tick Toronto off my list for now, and I would love to go back because it's a beautiful city. Like I can see why it doubles for New York in so many films.
yeah.
Like the buildings are just ginormous half the time. Like in London, they're about three-quarters of the size.
That's great. Yeah, I'd like to do the London. I've never done London, and I would like to try. I think film festivals are kind of great because you can travel and experience new cities and meet new people and kind of in this kind of built-in activity set and see a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't normally get to see in terms of movies and, you know, sightseeing.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I'll give Toronto over London any day is that there's much more of a film community in London, in Toronto, because everyone is there because they love films, and to an extent there is that in London as well, but it's not as obvious. Like there's
Hmm.
not really much of a community. You have to really like seek them out in order to find your group, as it were. But in Toronto, they're very easy to find. Everyone's really approachable. I know, like the stereotype of it, you know, Canada, everyone's nice, but honestly, that really was the experience for me. So, I mean, I had a great, just a lovely experience. Shout out to everyone who made it possible, all the organizers and everything. And
Yes.
I know, said like the volunteers at the very beginning of part one, but just want to give another shout out to them as well. You're all walks of life, you know. Some have lived in Toronto, some live from just outside, you know, some come from all sorts of backgrounds. Like
Mhm.
one is from a Hong Kong descendant, and another one used to live in London. And all these people also, all of them are here because they love film and they want to make this TIFF experience as great as possible for everyone. So just once again, another shout out to all you volunteers out there. You know who you are, and you did a magnificent job. So yeah, applause for the volunteers. Yay. I don't
Yeah,
know.
truly. I like being I still it happens at least once a festival that I tear up when everybody claps for the volunteers. And like I just think that's so important because truly the festival doesn't run without them. They
It,
are essential to the festival and
yeah,
we should a million awards for them. They're great.
it's just mind blowing all the work they do. I could never do some of the stuff that they do. So it's just like, wow, you know, like I'm just in awe. So yeah, really props to them, and I'm glad that they got a shout out at every single screening because every single time it never failed to get an applause. So that was
Every
really
yeah. Even if I
um
was zoned out for the rest of like all of the normal pre-show stuff, I always clap for the volunteers because that when I was a volunteer, I didn't know that it would happen the first time because the very first time I went to TIFF, I was a volunteer,
mhm.
and like it was just very overwhelming to like hear that because they always it changes every year, but they always have some sort of like little volunteer skit that they play. But yeah, it was very overwhelming to hear as a volunteer
Oh
all the
well.
applause. Yeah.
So as we wrap up this quite elongated look at TIFF, we've got to summarize it. So what are we saying our favorite films are of the festival?
It's got to be the substance.
Oh, okay.
It's got to be.
For me, it's Anora. So
Yep.
both excellent films. Both very likely to make my end of year list. So
Hmm.
I love The Substance, though I didn't see it at TIFF, so technically it doesn't count. So it's going to be Anora all the way for me. And what about least favorite? For me, it's a easy one. Oh Canada. Sorry, Paul Schrader.
Yeah, I guess I also probably have to go to O Canada too, just because O Canada and the Shrouds. I didn't mention it earlier, but the Shrouds was something else that I feel like had a lot of really interesting potential of
Mhm.
like a filmmaker reflecting on their life and their experiences in film and everything. That just neither of them really hit the emotional heart that I was hoping for.
The Shrouds, that's the David Cronenberg film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't get to see that. I didn't hear much about it, honestly.
I think Crimes of the Future said a lot of what The Shrouds was trying to say in a more full way, and I really enjoyed Crimes of the Future.
Okay, yeah. I mean that's fair enough. I don't know if that'll come out, but I'm sure it will at some point because it's
Yeah.
Cronenberg.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, unless, are there any other fun stories from the festival that you want to share, or do you think we've said enough?
I don't think anything, I can't think of anything else.
No, I think we've been talking about film so much. It's hard
I know.
to think like, what have we gotten up to? You know, like we all know all these characters and stuff, but anything? No, it really has just been consumed by all these all these magnificent and slightly less magnificent films. So
Yeah.
I think the real question is, I think I alluded to this earlier, but like, would we do it all again?
I mean, in a heartbeat. And you can replicate it at any other film festival. If I can go spend 11 days doing nothing but meeting people who also love movies and watching movies and talking about movies, and yeah, I'd sign me up.
Hell yeah. I mean, if for me, if money was no object, then
Right.
absolutely. Like I'd make the trip every year if I could. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, I am poor, and I am much more poorer now, having checked my bank account this morning. I racked up a lot of transaction fees while I was out there, so I'm
Oh yeah, you don't have a credit card that waives the foreign transaction fee?
I was stupid enough not to look at it beforehand, so that's my bad. I mean, buying all sorts of like food and gifts for family and stuff, it adds up. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to take it easy for the next while, which is gonna be interesting because London is coming up very soon as a recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, depleted bank account aside, I had a fantastic time at TIFF. Like I said, if money was no object, I'd go right back.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end this again, Mammoth look at Toronto Film Festival. Yeah, Tina, thank you so much for joining me all this time. I know it's a lot to ask you to come with me on this elongated journey back in time, but thank you very much for sticking around and thanks for chatting film with me.
Well, thank you for having me, Jack. This was so fun and such a little nice walk down memory lane that feels like 4 years ago, but was just like a week ago.
Yeah, no, it's just like even it just still doesn't feel real that we're just back and just kind of, oh, now we have to live our regular lives again.
Yeah.
It sucks. Now, where can people find you online if you have an online presence?
I do have an online presence. You can find me. I'm on Letterboxd at Tina underscore DOCX, like a Word document. And you can find me on Instagram at Tina Kakadelis dot JPEG. I thought I was being cute when I gave myself that name. And then you can find my podcast with my dad called Movies with My Dad at movieswithmydad.com.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to hear the episode on the substance. That is going to be
I can't,
amazing.
I can't wait either. My mom read the review, and even she has been like, "Are you sure you want to do this?"
The whole podcast is just going to be just you guys just in silence the whole time. It's
I'm
gonna
gonna be fine. I'm gonna be having a blast that I get to relive it.
so what did you make of it? Oh.
Fear in his eyes.
Oh, I cannot wait for that episode. But no, thank you so much, Tina. And yeah, that brings an end to our look at TIFF. So thank you very much for joining us. If you've listened all this way or watched all this way, well done you. You get a prize. Don't know what the prize is yet, but I'll think of it. But thank you very much, and yeah, join me next time for even more film goodness. So until next time, see you at the movies. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that sure was fun. And thank you, dear listener, for not just staying for all 3 hours of my TIFF recap, but also for a fantastic year with the Film Feeder podcast. I've had so much fun doing this, and I hope it's been worthwhile listening or viewing entertainment for you as well. So I wanted to quickly fill you in on what the future beholds for this podcast, and the short answer is not very much. Because I've decided for a few good reasons to put this show on ice for a little while, which means for the time being there won't be any monthly episodes, but that doesn't mean it's going away forever because I will certainly be continuing this show just on a more periodic basis, which gives me more time to focus on newer and more exciting stuff. And one of them being an all-new podcast that I've been setting up with my good friend and co-host Faye, which I'll be dedicating more time to with new episodes every month and should hopefully take a little bit less complex editing on my part. And so the name of this show is Movie Mischief, and you can expect that to launch in the new year. Now, again, this doesn't necessarily mean that Film Feeder is done for. It just means that I'll be doing a lot more with Faye on Movie Mischief than I will do by myself on this show. And of course, I'll still be uploading regular written reviews on the Film Feeder website at filmfeeder.co.uk, and also making plenty of short form videos on the Film Feeder TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube pages. Links and handles are in the episode description. So go and check those out if you haven't already, and do make sure you like and subscribe, and even comment to show your support. Yeah, no, I guess there's nothing left to say. I know you've stuck with me all this time, so thank you again. I hope you've had fun, and I have as well. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe on whatever platform you may be listening on or watching on. And if you've enjoyed it, then feel free to leave a comment or a review to just say how much fun you've had on this show. So, yeah, thank you once again for a brilliant year, and I will see you all in 2025 over on Movie Mischief. Bye!